Look, I know, it can get a lot. This is Callum, my co-founder, and together we've accompanied multiple CEOs to their first 500k a month, and all this without the founder taking on more onto his plate. Now the offer is simple. If you give me the next 25 minutes of your time, I will give you a step-by-step roadmap and a plan on how you can significantly increase your revenue while still being able to focus on the tasks that actually drive the business forward, and you don't have to spend a single day in a sales call anymore. Together, me and Callum have been over a decade in the sales industry now, seen many businesses fall, many businesses prosper, and the one distinguishing aspect between those who succeeded and between those who are not was the ability to adapt. Now it's also quite funny when you think of it in terms of evolution. The common thing between the soon-to-fail businesses was that they were spending their time on manual tasks, manually chasing each lead, manually updating the CRM, manually. What I even had to do is write up a whole summary for the call, put it into Google Sheets and then send that to my manager, which obviously isn't the best use of your time and the time of your reps as well. Now this manual approach didn't only lead subpar results, it led to customers being unsatisfied, sales reps being resentful, customers even leaving at this point. But most importantly, the founder, who actually started the business to provide value, was suffering. Chasing one task after another, being stuck in the business, not working on the business, working on things that don't really matter and don't push the needle forward so he could actually scale the business. I mean, I even remember that time where I was on a sales team and the founder quit. He threw in the towel. He didn't care anymore, which was a very, very hard pill to swallow, but I understand. So if you take a look at the business space, the problem is not effort. Everyone's giving it their all, a player, putting their all to the show. At the end of the day, what the problem is inefficiency. You don't need more leads, you don't need more reps, you don't need more marketing, you need systems. Now let's actually take a look at how manual growth looks like and essentially how it hinders your business. Now what does the reality of manual growth look like? First of all, what we found is that manual growth is basically just effort without scale. I mean, you're putting in the work, you're chasing the follow-ups, you're chasing the opportunities, but at the end of the day, you cannot serve everyone. And every time you are not working, the competition that has implemented systems is. Now, at the end of the day, that leads to missed opportunities, which leads to overwhelmed sales teams because they cannot handle everything that you require them to do. You're behind target, you're behind KPI, you're sitting there day in, day out at your desk thinking, how can I increase the revenue of my business? But at the end of the day, what does that lead to? Burnout founders. Same thing that happened with one of the business owners that I've worked for in the past is he just quit. He threw in the towel. He couldn't handle it anymore because he was stuck in the day-to-day tasks, chasing lead after lead. Now what we found is that success equals adaptation, especially in the info product space. Fast responders win. You need to adapt quickly in order to actually make sure that you can drive the business forward. And there's a very, very specific saying, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's not about how hard you row, it's about which boat you're in. Exact same thing here. Systems just beat hustle every time. Yes, you will have to put your A game into it. Yes, you will have to go all in into your business. Yes, you will have to give 100%, but you're doing that anyway. What's the difference between you, who's working 100%, and your competitor, who's working 100% as well, even though he makes 2 times more revenue? The only difference is systems. Now, what is actually the hidden cost? Because some people just don't realize that missed leads turn into missed revenue because you just cannot fulfill or handle everyone, which is absolutely normal. I mean, even if you've got a team of 3 or 4 or 5 reps, you will still not be able to get a hold of. Also, slow process leads to a psychological issue, which is lost momentum. At the end of the day, you will feel burnt out, you feel founder fatigue, you don't feel passionate about it anymore, which is not beneficial to you, which is not beneficial to you and your team, which is not beneficial to you and your team and, for example, your family, your close ones, your relatives, because you're constantly stuck inside your head thinking about how can you improve the business, but you haven't found a solution yet. Because at the end of the day, the real problem is not how much you put in, it's not how hard you row, it's what boat you're in. It's inefficiency. Look at the casual funnel. As you can see, a very, very simple funnel. Leads come through a person brand or a VSL. So ads in a VSL or person brand. Leads book themselves a call. They go through a triage or a setting process. They can also imply about newsletters, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, what's most important is that they land on the calendar and they are essentially on a closing call. Just a classic sales call, then they become a customer. Now let's focus on one of those aspects. Let's just focus on the sales call and take a look at what can we do there and what actually is the opportunity cost that's lying out and what are you actually missing out on in terms of revenue. Let's just say in business A, one rep has 6 calls per day. Around 20% conversion is sort of the average on the industry and 50% no-show, which is also pretty average. The ticket price, classic, 5K coaching. Now, how does that look like in terms of the month and the revenue generated? If you're all on target, the expected revenue per call is 5K times 0.2, which is basically 1K, times 6, that's 6K opportunity per day, which you can close on average. Now, because 50% don't show up, 6K turns into 3K a day, which is still not bad. You're making per month with your business right now around 66K per month per rep. Say that is without AI. Let's take a look at what happens if you implement AI into it. So with AI, same exact thing, right? You expect revenue per call is around 1K. The total per day is 6K. Now let's just say you implement some sort of pre-qualification or pre-show-up system, whether that be our booked and closed system that we've designed that we can implement for you, or you do that yourself and you bump up the show rate from 50 to 80%. Your revenue per day goes from 3K to 4.8K, which is not that massive of a jump, granted. At the end of the day, if you take a look at that over a month, that's 105.6K per month per rep. Now, I hope you're still following me. If you compare those two numbers, by not implementing AI and by not systemizing your process, you are losing out on 40,000 a month just in the show-up process. Now, that's cost per month per rep. Let's just say you have 3 reps. That's 120K per month that you're actually leaving on the table because you are not willing to adapt, because you are not willing to become more efficient. Now, just imagine what you could do and how your business would look like and how much money you are leaving on the table right now because you're not implementing those solutions. Now, it's not too much about the revenue. Let's just imagine how much more happier you would be as a founder, as a CEO, when you are not constantly in the day-to-day tasks. You would actually be able to focus on what drives the business forward and how you can push the needle and not being stuck chasing leads, making sure that the CRM is tidy, managing your team, but you could actually just focus on providing value, being the CEO, making strategic decisions, basically the thing that you signed up for anyway in the first place. Now, obviously, show up is a very, very specific, very, very niche point of your business, of your sales funnel. Let's just put this one by one and take a look at an average funnel. So average funnel is you've got outreach and marketing. Let's say you've got a lead list, 25% of those get contacted. You've got SDRs, you've got setters in place. They go through a triage process or through a setting process. 50% is the qualification rate, which is not bad, right? It's pretty good. Most businesses, I'll be quite honest, are even below that. And you've got a sales call. 50% of your leads show up. You've got a 25% conversion rate. Let's just be generous about that. 25% of those calls that show up are going to get converted into customers. With AI, I could bump up the contact rate from 25 to 60%. Now, because AI is just going to contact a lot more people, it's going to work around the clock, there will be some people and some leads that are shit that are not going to be beneficial to your business. Let's just be honest about that. Which is why the quality rate drops. Let's just say 35%. However, because you've implemented, for example, a booked and closed system, the show-up rate goes up to 80%. Now, because you also implemented some pre-qualification processes and because now your barrier to entry is a lot higher because you have a lot more leads to deal with, your team now speaks with more qualified people. They also get pre-warmed through basically the system that you've implemented before they even jump onto the call. They get sent specific testimonies, specific case studies, and your conversion rate bumps up from 25% to 35%. Now, in terms of numbers, let's just chuck 1,000 leads into that. So, right, I won't bore you with the numbers. At the end of the day, what matters most is you've got 125 opportunities booked with the average funnel, with the AI enhanced funnel, with our booked and closed system, with our post-call system. You've got around 210 opportunities on your calendar. 160 of those show up versus 62.5, which would have shown up if you didn't actually implement solutions and systems. And the difference between you going on as you are right now, having an average funnel, not having anything set in place, any systems, versus you implementing those systems, actually making sure that you've got a proper funnel, proper setup, proper systems, just on the financial basis, not even talking about psychological, how you'll feel, just on the financial basis, The difference is 225,000 per month that you are leaving on the table. In terms of, if you put this into percentage, that's like a 3.5, 4x increase, if I'm not mistaken. So you're actively leaving money on the table by not putting anything into your systems. Now let's take a look at how this actually can be automated and what you can actually automate. Now before we go into that, let's actually go inside because it's freezing right now. Before we can even dive into the fancy automations, first things first, we have to understand the basics. What is AI and how can that be applicable in businesses? Now, AI typically classifies itself into three main distinct aspects. First one is conversation AI, which is basically just interactive with customers or with your employees, for example. As it is in the name, it's conversational, so it's basically either on text or per voice, nothing else. An example of that could be, for example, lead scoring and lead qualification, where you have a lead setter, for example, on a school website, or you've got a newsletter, or you've got an Instagram channel, and you nurture leads through keeping in touch with them. It looks like you're texting, but you're not at the end of the day. The second aspect is AI tools. So essentially supporting staff. AI tools, they run with staff. So they're not essentially completely automated. They're not running in the background. They are literally at the end of the day controlled by your staff, and they're there to enhance the efficiency of you, your staff, your team, and overall your business. A good example for that will be an AI proposal generator, where your team members put in specific data, specific metrics, and AI spits out a proposal that is custom made to a customer, and you don't need to spend hours on drafting up a proposal again. The third aspect is where things get a bit more interesting, which is AI workflow automations. This is completely autonomous. And a good example for that could be a pre-call case study. So something that completely runs in the background without you even noticing it or without you even needing to initiate it. Now, again, the difference between the good and the bad business is that the good business has all three. It's not a one size fits all. It's not that you just implement one and you're done. At the end of the day, you still have to have all three in order to actually have the good business, in order to actually have the systematic business that is actually effective and can increase revenue through that. It would almost be like if you are sick and you have 3 symptoms, you only treat one and expect to be better. Now on to the good part. What actually is possible in a business sense and how can you implement that into your own business? This is a short breakdown of essentially the whole funnel and how it looks like, from literally outreach and marketing all the way through to retention and fulfillment. Usually within those 4 stages, you can implement specific automation, specific AI tools all the way through to conversation AI. Conversation AI usually happens either at the front part of the sale or at the end of the sale, where they're already your customer and you want to retain them, you want to fulfill them. AI tools can happen throughout the whole journey, same as AI workflow automation. In terms of outreach and marketing, what you can mainly do is either doing a database reactivation, where you basically take a look at how can you get more leads, how can you get more people inquired, how can you contact more people, because you now have, for example, an AI setter instead of a human one, or an AI enhanced one, where your AI qualifies, gets the leads warm, and your setter just speaks to the ones that already warm, that have already basically opted in. From outreach and marketing to the sales call, this is where a lot of that qualifying is going to happen, a lot of that scheduling, right? So pre-qualifying, custom nurturing, making sure that your leads come to the sales call as warm as possible, so you can have as high of a conversion rate as possible. And at the end of the day, the marketing does 85% of the conversion rate, and the sales team only has to do 15% of the conversion in order to actually get the sale over the line, versus regular businesses that simply rely on the sales force to actually close the deal. That could happen within various different approaches. You can see them listed here. I won't really bore you with that. On to the next one, which is the sales call, which is, in my opinion, a massive game changer since I've been in the industry for a very, very long time now. And I've spent so much time in doing tasks that are not actually selling. A big, big time eater as a sales rep is essentially making sure that the CM is nice and tidy, that you update everything, that you summarize the call properly, that you add the right notes, yada, yada, yada. What you can do is implement an AI call summarizer. You chuck in a Fireflies or Fathom, that transcript gets passed through a LLM, for example, ChatGPT, for example, Claude, and at the end of the day, updates the CM automatically and independently, so your reps can actually focus on closing rather than being accountants. That was one thing which always annoyed me throughout my now 4 or 5 years in sales. During the stage of sales call and client, this is where, in my opinion, a lot of time gets wasted and a lot of opportunity cost happens because you cannot focus on closing as a sales rep, which is very, very simply said, what happens after the call? Will that be following up with your leads? God believe I used to do that all manually, following up with them. I literally have a contact list of over, by now, thousands of prospects in my phone that I followed up with on WhatsApp, literally manually, typing in every night, hey, still keen for the deal. Now, obviously, that's not the best use of your rep's time, which is why you can automate the follow-up, the resources sent, making sure that your leads still stay warm. Now, let's say they put down a deposit for your business, then they want to close in, let's say, a month. How does that actually look like over the next month? What resources do you send them? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them warm? I had to figure all this out by myself, which led to inconsistent results, which led to not being scalable at the end of the day. Also, a big one, proposal generator for the B2B aspect, how to make sure the proposal is automatically generated all the way through to a payment plan automator. Now, onto the last one, with retention and fulfillment. This is my opinion where you can make so much money. This is my opinion the easiest way for you as a business owner to increase your sales and increase your revenue because you've already closed the customers. Now, how can you retain them and how can you upsell them? Which is where all those automations fall into, from automatic reporting. How is, for example, your B2B aspect? How is your marketing? How is your website driving the business forward? Switching that over and sending that proactively to your customer so you don't have to tell them every week that the business is actually doing better. All the way through to an upsell generator, making sure to identify the intent of your customer, through to the customer health score tracker, right? The classic NPS score rating, making sure that once a customer is warm, once a customer is good to go, you can upsell them onto a specific later cycle. Now let's take a look at how that actually could look like in action. So let's say you've got an accumulation of leads, for example, a database or a Instagram or a school community. You put an AI SDR into it, basically a human-like Android that not only qualifies, but also drives the prospect and the lead into booking and warming them up for the first call, which is going to either be a triage call, which is either going to be a direct closing call, depending on the structure of your funnel, depending on what you want to achieve. There's going to be various different ideas. Now, let's say they respond poorly and they respond negatively. You can gather feedback and improve the product. You can measure market trends, what is missing, what can you improve on. At the end of the day, you now have a tangible way to actually improve your product and also drive sales and drive bookings. Once that kind of link gets sent and the call is scheduled, you get a custom case study specifically tailored to what you've talked about and to what suits you the best. So once you come onto that call, you're already pre-closed, you're warm, you're ready to go, and your reps have a lot more easier time to actually close because they only have to do 15% of the heavy lifting and the marketing does the rest. Now let's actually take a look at how this works. So at the end of the day, you can also build this yourself. It's not going to be difficult. I promise. It's going to be less than 5 minutes, honestly. So this is what you can see. A very, very simple SDR, very, very simple build, nothing too dramatic. You can input this into your school community, input this into your newsletter, into your Instagram DM box, into your WhatsApp business account. Doesn't really matter. Anywhere where your leads interact with you. So very, very simple to kick off. Hey Richard, welcome to the newsletter. Best influencer name. You can insert your co-founder. You can insert whoever found the content valuable so far. Let's just say no. It sucks. Completely awful content. Thanks for the honesty, gathering that feedback. Going that route. Now let's just reload this and actually go with the positive route so we can get ourselves a meeting booked. Hey Rich, welcome to the newsletter. Found the content valuable. Yes, it's really good. Let's just say, glad to hear. Seen that your phone number is from Switzerland. Are you based there? Heard AI is booming there. And you can include the phone number, the +41 or the +43 or the +1, whatever, all the way through to the IP address, to the geographical location, through to the email. It doesn't really matter as long as it's some form of common ground. Let's just say no, not really, because I'm right now in Paris, in France. Nice, whereabouts are you? Paris. There we go. Now it captures the location and goes on to the next sequence, which is basically love to booking a call. Lovely. Hey, look, why don't we jump onto a quick call with one of our members to see if you could be a good fit for the accelerator for the mindset-driven business, for the insert whatever your name. If you'd be a good fit for getting 15 extra leads a month, whatever, doesn't really matter. Very soft CTA. Quick 50 minutes. If you'd like, I'll send you a link. Yeah, shoot it over. Now you should receive a link. If we click on that, it's going to take us through to this page. Let's just book ourselves a random call here. Now to the interesting part, which is where in your calendar you can basically put in questions that you want to ask before prospect books in a call with you, which is which type of business suits you the most. It's a bit of a typo by me. Apologies about that. You go into either education product or agency. Let's just say education product, and you schedule your call. Sweet. Fantastic. That should be it. If the automation is working, we should have received a customized email with a customized case study sent through us based on our responses, which is basically that we are an educational product in the education industry, essentially. There we go. 2 emails from confirmation, one from on auto. Hey John, I'm very excited to speak about your business and what potential use cases you'd like to explore. What others in the education space help before jumping on with us is getting a rough understanding of what could be done, just getting the idea going. And then there is the video attached, which is always nice to have. So looks like it's working. Let's actually go into building this. Now, if you'd like to know how to actually build the solution step by step, I've made a whole guide on that. You can access it by clicking on the top of the right corner with the info button. It's going to pop up somewhere and it's going to take you to the video where I walk you through it step by step. Otherwise, let's dive into the most important topic of AI automation, especially in the sales funnel, which is, are you ready to implement it, and what indicators are there that show that you're ready to actually take on the next step? So Callum, I guess what would you say is, in your opinion, some of the biggest indicators that a business is actually ready to implement AI into their sales funnel?
I reckon the biggest indicators is that they find themselves in patterns where they find themselves doing the same tasks over and over again, and it's stuff that does not require much actual, I'll call it, brain power. I think another indicator as well is around lead flow. I think when you've got, yeah, definitely. I think when you've got businesses where they've got a lot of leads coming in, and almost it's just quite a lot to handle if they're paying, if they're getting leads for ads, or it's definitely a key thing where you want to make sure you're actually utilizing, as much of the investment in ad spend, or whether that's, content, whatever that may look like, you're not letting leads slip through the cracks, essentially, that every lead is being, dealt with and actually getting the attention it deserves.
I agree. And especially if you're spending your money on marketing, if you're not utilizing everything, it's just kind of stupid.
No, I was going to say on the back of that as well, another one that's sort of quite undervalued is like when you've got businesses that have got CRMs with not even massive amount of data, but a lot of leads that have just been sort of just lying around in the CRM, completely forgotten about. And nothing's been done. Obviously, some businesses have email sequences, nurture sequences, whatever that may look like. But if that's all you've got, then it's like, okay, hang on, there's a lot more potential here that can be done with those leads.
What would you say? Can you replace staff with systems and with AI? What's your take on that?
I think that it's like the big elephant in the room. People obviously look as soon as you start hearing AI, it's like everyone's like, oh my God, they're coming for my job. There's there's a scene in South Park where they're talking about people taking their jobs, and it cracks me up every time because it almost reminds me a bit of actually what is going on with AI at the minute. I think yes, if your job isn't probably that doesn't require that much skill, then probably it can. But I think the key is that it's basically there to make everyone so much more efficient. I think if you've got a sales team, sales is a very draining job. It's it requires a lot of mental power. To perform well in sales, you've got to have a good state and maintain that. So if you're spending a lot of your time and that effort into tasks that just deplete your state and they don't really move the needle, it's you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So ideally you want to be basically having your sales team focus on the conversations that matter, having the good state for that, good energy levels for that, and all of the other stuff, you know, they shouldn't have to worry about that. And I think that those are the systems that AI come in and help basically.
Now you have a very good understanding of what AI use cases could be implemented in your business. Congratulations, you went from problem aware to realizing what the potential of AI is, all the way through to optionally building your own workflow. If you'd like Callum and me to take a look at your business and give you a whole free analysis on which AI use cases make the most sense for you and your business, book yourself a free discovery call with the first link in the description below. Otherwise, I'll catch you later and I wish you a good rest of your day. Bye bye.